Well, hello good people and welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone out there is having a good weekend thus far. But with this being the first weekend in September, and with me being done reviewing Naked and Afraid Frozen, I thought this would be the perfect time to bring back my Unpopular Opinion series. And the movie that inspired this unpopular opinion will be Mrs. Doubtfire, starring Robin Williams and Sally Field. Now growing up, I gotta say that Mrs. Doubtfire was indeed one of the funniest movies that I've seen that centered its story around the topic of divorce and the lengths that one devoted father would take to be in the lives of his kids. But as I've gotten older, I've come to realize the movie for what it is, and I gotta call Miranda out for her shenanigans. So as I get ready to dive in, ladies and gentlemen, feel free to sit back, buckle up, and prepare to agree or disagree with what I'm about to say. The movie Mrs. Doubtfire came out in the 90s. However, in my opinion, it contains a lot of hidden gems that people can still learn from to this day. In Mrs. Doubtfire, Daniel is painted as a fun-loving man who has issues with being mature, keeping jobs, and he is someone who Miranda considers as unreliable. However, Miranda not only married Daniel, but she had 3 kids with this man prior to coming to this conclusion. So one has to ask themselves, was Daniel the perfect guy when he initially met Miranda, then one day out the blue became unreliable? Or was Daniel always the unreliable guy that Miranda painted him to be, but she only decided to get with him because nobody else was looking for her? The movie fails to get deep into their relationship dynamics, and it also fails to mention whether or not Daniel and Miranda ever gave couples counseling a shot, or exhaust all possible options in order to salvage their union. Nevertheless, Miranda was angry with Daniel's carefree attitude and decided to hurt Daniel the only way that she could, and this was by keeping his kids away from him. You see, Miranda technically had the right to ask for a divorce. Irreconcilable differences is another term for, we just didn't see eye to eye. And by filing for divorce, that meant that Daniel would be the one to have to leave the house, rebuild his life, and that Miranda would have the upper hand when it came to filing for custody of the kids. Miranda knew all of this and still weaponized the custody battle with Daniel in order to hurt him, but it also hurt the kids in the process, which makes Miranda completely out of order. Even after Daniel is subjected to unfair treatment by the courts, Miranda seemingly moved on pretty quickly from the divorce with Daniel, and she wasted no time introducing her new boyfriend Stu to the kids and Daniel, disguised as Mrs. Doubtfire. Now the movie doesn't exactly say how much time has passed since Daniel and Miranda got divorced, but it seemed to have happened well within a year, and one could argue that Miranda may have been talking to Stu while still legally married to Daniel, or Miranda saw that Stu's bankroll was on swole, and she did whatever she needed to do to quickly lock Stu in. But either way, in my opinion, whenever a custodial parent introduces their school-age kids to a new significant other, especially if those kids still love their non-custodial parent, then it can create unnecessary drama for all those involved, which is another reason why Miranda was completely out of order. Now after Miranda learned that Daniel was Mrs. Doubtfire all along, all of the good deeds that Daniel did as Mrs. Doubtfire, all the great things that he did with the kids, and how he helped rebuild himself from nothing was completely overlooked by Miranda because she was angry that Daniel deceived her. And when the two went back to court for their custody battle, the judge completely chose Daniel out while awarding full custody to Miranda. Now Miranda is no dummy, nor is she a fool. She obviously knows that Daniel is a good father, and she knows how much the kids mean to Daniel. But she never once spoke up for Daniel, nor did she try to tell her lawyer to come up with a settlement with Daniel during the hearing. She was blinded by rage, and she only felt some level of guilt after she saw how her decision to use her kids made Daniel feel. It wasn't until Miranda saw Daniel on TV as Mrs. Doubtfire, and she saw that the kids loved being able to see their father on a regular basis, that she came up with the master plan. Miranda saw that Daniel was about to become rich, so she met up with Daniel and worked out a deal that allowed Daniel to see the kids more often because it opened the doors for possible reconciliation or a higher child support payment. And it didn't hurt that Daniel would likely be making twice as much as Stu made. But in closing, I would like to say this. Daniel never cheated on Miranda. He never physically assaulted her. He never made threats of harming her in any way or the kids, and he never stole from her. Daniel was definitely far from perfect, but nobody could question Daniel's love for the kids. And Miranda took none of that into consideration when she broke up the family and used the kids to get back at Daniel. These things only crossed Miranda's mind when she saw that Daniel became successful without her. But one also has to ask themselves, would Daniel have changed for the better if Miranda didn't divorce him and hold the kids hostage? I think that Daniel could have done anything that he put his mind to. That is, if he had the right woman to support him in the process. And unfortunately, Miranda was not that woman, and that was solely because she didn't want to be. So indeed, I think that Miranda was completely out of order. But I would like to know what you all think. Was Miranda right for asking for a divorce and keeping the kids away from Daniel? Or should she have tried to fulfill her marital vows and made every attempt to make the marriage work? Feel free to leave your comments below in the comment section, and I'll be sure to reply to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.